The colony nights were always silent, but this silence felt different. The human sat alone in his small outpost house, far from Earth, far from everything he once knew. He had lived through war, carried scars that no one could see, and now the stillness of exile pressed down on him like a weight. He had no visitors, no neighbors who dared to knock at his door. That was why the sound startled him. It was faint at first, like a whisper against metal. A knock. He froze, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. Out here, in the forgotten edge of alien territory, no one came without reason. His hand instinctively moved toward the old weapon lying near the table, not out of aggression but out of habit, the kind that never leaves a soldier. The knock came again, this time sharper, more desperate. He stood, his boots scraping the floor. Step by step, he moved closer to the door, his heart thudding louder with every beat. Memories of ambushes during the war flooded his mind. He had opened doors before and found death waiting on the other side. For a moment he considered ignoring it. But something in the rhythm of that knock, the uneven, trembling pattern, pulled at him. He unlatched the door slowly. Outside stood a figure cloaked in shadows. A woman, not human but alien. Her skin held a faint glow, her eyes shimmering with exhaustion and fear. She was shaking, as if the strength to stand was slipping away. And clinging to her legs were two children, small and fragile, their eyes wide in the pale light. The soldier's breath caught. This was no enemy squad, no patrol, no spy. This was something entirely different. The woman's lips parted. Her voice broke with emotion as she spoke words he never expected to hear. "Please, my children need a father." The soldier felt the weight of those words hit him like a blow. He stood silent, weapon still in his hand but suddenly meaningless. He had fought battles across stars, seen ships fall from the sky, but nothing in all that chaos prepared him for this moment. He glanced at the children. They did not cry. They only held on tighter, their small hands digging into their mother's gown. Their silence was louder than any scream, filled with fear and hope at the same time. The soldier finally spoke, his voice rough, as though unused for weeks. "Why me? Why here?" The woman stepped forward, her eyes glistening. "Because there is no one else. My husband is gone. The war took him. Now the clans want to take us. Without protection we will be claimed, or worse. You are human. They fear humans. They respect your kind's strength. If you stand with us, they cannot touch us." Her words carried the truth. He knew the clans she spoke of. Ruthless, power-hungry, always circling like predators. He had faced them before on battlefields, had seen how they treated widows and orphans. Still, part of him wanted to close the door to keep his distance. He had survived this long by staying away from other people's wars. But then his eyes fell on the children again. Their thin frames, their trembling hands, the way they stared at him with a fragile hope. They reminded him of a memory he had buried deep. A night during the war when he had pulled alien children out of burning rubble. Their eyes had been the same. That night, he had sworn never to let innocence suffer if he could help it. He loosened his grip on the weapon and stepped aside. His voice was quiet but firm. "Come inside." The woman gasped, relief flooding her face. She guided the children through the doorway as if afraid the offer might vanish if she hesitated. They shuffled into the small room, glancing around nervously, unused to human surroundings. The soldier closed the door behind them. The silence outside returned, but now it carried a new tension. He could feel it pressing against the walls, as though the darkness itself was watching. The woman sat with her children in the corner, holding them close. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "They will come for us. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tonight. I do not ask for much, only safety for my children. I had nowhere else to go." The soldier sat across from them, studying their faces in the dim light. He did not answer right away. His mind raced, weighing danger against duty. He had wanted peace, but peace had never come easy for him. Perhaps peace was never meant for soldiers. What struck him most was not her plea, but the children's silence. They had not spoken a single word. They just watched him, as though waiting for him to decide if they were worth saving. For the first time in years, the soldier felt something stir inside him. Not the cold edge of survival, but something warmer, older. A sense of purpose he thought he had lost. The night stretched on, the flickering light casting long shadows on the walls. The soldier knew one thing. The knock on his door had changed everything. Whatever happened next, his life would not return to the silence it once was. This was the beginning of something far larger than himself. The human soldier did not sleep that night. He sat in silence, leaning back on the wooden chair, eyes fixed on the alien woman and her children as they huddled together near the small fire. The flames flickered, casting shadows across their faces. The children clung to their mother, half asleep, while she remained awake, her eyes filled with both fear and exhaustion. Hours passed, but the silence grew heavier instead of lighter. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a weight that could not be ignored. "You must wonder why I came to your door." The soldier's eyes narrowed slightly. "I do," he replied. She looked down, fingers tracing the fabric of her gown nervously. "When my husband was alive, he protected us. He was strong, respected, even feared. But when the war came, he never returned. The day his body was brought back, everything changed. The clans smelled weakness. They came to my door, smiling, pretending kindness, but their eyes promised chains." Her words cut through the air. The soldier said nothing, but he understood. He had seen it before. Predators circling widows, families torn apart not just by war but by those who thrived in its aftermath. The woman lifted her gaze to meet his. "They told me I must give myself to one of them, that my children would be raised in their clan. Refusal is not allowed. They give me until the next cycle. If I do not agree, they will take us by force. I ran, and I found you." Her voice trembled on the last words, but her eyes burned with quiet defiance. The soldier shifted in his chair. He had heard many pleas during his years as a fighter, villagers begging for mercy, soldiers asking for one last chance. But this felt different. This was not only about survival. This was about dignity, about keeping something pure alive in a world that had turned cruel. Still, he kept his tone steady, almost cold. "Why me? There are others here. Why not them?" She did not hesitate. "Because you are human. Humans are different. Even the clans whisper about you. They fear your strength. They respect your courage. They say humans do not bow easily." The soldier almost laughed at that, but the sound died in his throat. He remembered how humanity had bled during the war, how many of his people had fallen. Courage, strength, those words felt empty now. Yet, looking into her eyes, he realized she believed them. To her children, he was more than a man. He was a shield. The children stirred, one of them opening sleepy eyes. The boy's gaze met the soldier's, cautious but curious. Slowly, he crawled closer, holding something small in his hand. It was a piece of paper, worn and creased. The boy offered it to him silently. The soldier unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, crude, shaky lines of charcoal forming the shape of a human figure standing tall, holding back dark shapes with one arm, while protecting a small family with the other. The soldier stared at it, his chest tightening. The child whispered softly, almost shyly, "That is you." The mother's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed quiet, letting the child's words hang in the air. The soldier folded the paper and set it down slowly. His silence stretched, but inside, his mind was racing. He could walk away. He could tell them to leave in the morning, to find someone else, to face their fate alone. That would be safer. That would keep him alive. But when he looked at them, the mother's trembling hands, the boy's tired eyes, the little girl clutching her doll with fear, he felt the same pull he had once felt on the battlefield when innocents looked to him for salvation. A soldier does not always choose his battles. Sometimes the battles choose him. The woman leaned closer, her voice breaking. "I am not asking for love. I am not asking for comfort. I ask only for safety, for my children to sleep without fear, for their future not to be stolen. If you stand beside us, Even in name alone, the clans will not touch us. They will not dare. Her plea was raw, stripped of pride. It was not romance, not flattery, but survival. The soldier's jaw tightened. He felt the old weight of decision pressing down on him, the kind he thought he had left behind when he walked away from war. He was not a savior, not anymore. But they looked at him as if he was the only hope left in this dark corner of the galaxy. The fire crackled softly, the only sound in the room. At last he spoke. You know, if I stand with you, the clans will see it as a challenge. They will not stop. They will test me, test you. It will not be easy. The woman did not flinch. I know. But I would rather face danger with a man of honor than live in chains under cowards. Her words struck him deeper than he expected. A memory flashed. His own mother back on Earth, standing tall against hardship, refusing to break even when the world around her collapsed. For the first time in a long while, the soldier felt something stir in his chest. Not just duty, but a fragile spark of hope. He looked at the children, then at the widow. His lips pressed into a thin line as he gave a slow nod. I will not promise what I cannot keep, he said quietly. But as long as I breathe, no one will take you or your children. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She bowed her head, whispering words of thanks he could barely hear. The soldier leaned back, staring into the flames, knowing that from this moment, his quiet exile was over. The plea had been heard, and his answer had set a storm into motion. The fire had burned low, leaving only glowing embers in the corner of the room. The soldier sat in silence, but his mind was far from quiet. The widow and her children were finally asleep, curled together like fragile birds hiding from the storm. Their breaths were soft, steady. But his own thoughts, they were restless, drifting back to the past he had tried to bury. He closed his eyes, and the memories came uninvited. The roar of engines, the smell of smoke and blood, the cries of soldiers echoing across broken cities. He remembered the day the war had taken everything from him. He had been young then, full of fire, believing that humanity could change the galaxy with courage and honor. But war had stripped those illusions away, piece by piece. He saw again the ruins of an alien town, flames rising into the night sky. He had walked through streets littered with broken homes, broken bodies. And then, through the smoke, he had heard it, a faint cry. At first he thought it was a wounded soldier. But when he pushed through the rubble, he found them. 2 alien children trapped beneath collapsed stone. Their eyes wide with terror, their small hands reaching out. He had dropped his weapon that day, ignoring the orders barking through his communicator. He dug with his bare hands until his nails cracked, pulling them free one stone at a time. When he finally pulled the children out, their little bodies covered in dust, they clung to him as if he were the only thing left in the universe. He remembered how one of them whispered a word he didn't understand then, but later learned meant protector. That word had followed him through the war. Protector. Not conqueror. Not killer. Protector. It haunted him more than the screams because it reminded him of what he was supposed to be and how often he had failed. The soldier opened his eyes, staring at the widow sleeping across the room. Her face was calm now, but faint lines of worry were etched even in her rest. Her children curled against her, seeking warmth and safety. The scene before him was almost the same as his memory, like history repeating itself. Innocence looking to him as their shield. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped tightly. He told himself he didn't want this responsibility. He had come here to disappear, to leave war behind. Yet the more he tried to resist, the more those old memories pressed against him. The universe had a cruel way of dragging him back into battles he didn't choose. Outside, the night winds shifted. He thought he heard voices in the distance, muffled, drifting through the stillness. Patrols, perhaps, or worse, the clans already searching for her. He gripped the handle of his weapon, muscles tense, until the sound faded. But the reminder was clear. Danger was close. He closed his eyes again, and another memory rose, sharper this time. The battlefield on the plains of Karen. His unit had been ordered to hold the line against overwhelming numbers. The ground had shaken beneath the march of alien warriors. He remembered the fear in his fellow soldiers' faces, young men and women who had never known real war until that moment. When the attack came, it was chaos. Explosions, screams, bodies falling one after another. But he had stood his ground. He didn't know how long he fought, minutes, hours, days. It had all blurred together. At one point, when his strength had nearly failed, he remembered looking around and realizing something shocking. The enemy wasn't charging anymore. They were hesitating. They were watching him with something close to fear. A single human, bloodied and exhausted, had become a wall they could not cross. That was when he learned the truth. Humanity's power wasn't just in weapons. It was in will, in the refusal to bend. That was why the clans feared humans. Because humans, even broken, did not yield. He opened his eyes again, and this time he looked at the widow's children. Small, helpless, innocent. He knew that if the clans came for them, they would not stop. They would take and destroy, unless someone stood in their way. His chest tightened. He hated this feeling, the pull of responsibility, the weight of duty. But it was there all the same. He could not deny it. The memory of those children he had saved long ago, the faces of his fallen comrades, the word protector whispered in a trembling voice. It all pressed against him, demanding an answer. The soldier rose quietly and walked to the small window, peering out into the night. The colony beyond was dark, but in that darkness, he imagined shadows moving. He could almost see the clans gathering, waiting for the chance to strike. His reflection in the glass looked older than he remembered. Tired, scarred, but still standing. A man who had lost everything but was still breathing. Perhaps that was enough. He whispered to himself, words meant only for the silence. I didn't ask for this. But maybe, this time I cannot run. The embers behind him crackled faintly, throwing sparks into the air. The widow shifted in her sleep, pulling her children closer. The soldier's eyes lingered on them, and for the first time in years, he felt something that wasn't despair. It wasn't hope yet, but it was close. He turned away from the window, his decision not fully spoken, but already alive inside him. The war was behind him, but the memories were alive. And those memories whispered a truth he could no longer ignore. He was still a protector, and soon he would have to prove it again. Morning arrived slowly, spilling pale light across the small shelter. The soldier had not slept. His body was tired, but his mind stayed sharp, trained to watch for danger even in quiet hours. He sat near the door, his weapon resting against the wall, while the widow and her children stirred awake. The little girl blinked first, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. She glanced at him, her gaze shy, then buried her face in her mother's shoulder. The boy, older and braver, sat up straighter, staring openly at the soldier as if studying him. The soldier said nothing. He wasn't used to children. His life had been made of orders, battles, and silence, not small voices or innocent faces. Yet the boy's eyes didn't waver. They were steady, curious, holding something the soldier hadn't felt in years. Trust. Their mother whispered softly, brushing her daughter's hair. It's all right. We are safe here. Her voice carried warmth, but it also carried weight, as though she wanted to believe those words as much as her children did. The boy finally spoke, his voice quiet but clear. You are human. My teacher used to tell stories about humans. The soldier raised an eyebrow. Stories. The boy nodded eagerly. She said humans fight like no one else. That even when everything is burning, humans don't fall back. They stand. She said, that is why the clans fear you. The soldier leaned back against the wall, his jaw tightening. He wasn't sure whether to feel pride or sorrow. Yes, humans had stood. They had fought until their bodies broke. But he remembered the price, millions who never returned home. Did the boy know about that part of the story? Did he know that strength always came with blood? The little girl peeked up from her mother's shoulder. She held a small doll, worn and frayed, made of fabric scraps. She whispered something the soldier almost didn't catch. "Are you really strong?" Her words pierced him deeper than any weapon. He had no answer. Strength had carried him through battlefields, but now, he felt more like an empty shell than a hero. Yet, when he looked at her small, trembling eyes, he could not bring himself to tell the truth. Instead, he reached for the folded drawing the boy had given him the night before. He placed it on the table where the children could see. A simple sketch of a man standing against shadows. "Why did you draw this?" he asked. The boy's face brightened. "Because I knew you would come. I told my sister. I said a human would save us. She didn't believe me, but I did." The soldier felt his chest tighten. They had believed in him before they had even met him. Their hope was not born from reason, but from desperation. And now their eyes followed him like he was more than just a man. He was their wall, their shield. The widow watched quietly. She didn't speak, but the gratitude in her eyes was plain. At the same time, he could see the fear of what the future would bring, fear of how long his protection would last. The soldier rose to his feet, pacing slowly across the room. "You need to understand," he said, his tone steady but firm. "If the clans come, it won't be easy. They don't like to lose. They don't like to be challenged. Standing with me means standing against them. It will put us all in danger." The children's eyes didn't look away. The boy simply said, "We already live in danger. At least with you, we can fight." The soldier stopped walking. That simple sentence struck harder than any speech. Out of the mouths of children came the truth adults often ignored. They weren't asking for safety. They were asking for the chance to stand, to live without chains. He studied them for a long moment. The boy's eyes held fire. The little girl's eyes, though frightened, still glimmered with belief. And behind them, the widow's eyes held quiet strength, like a flame refusing to go out. The soldier finally sighed, sitting back down. He looked at the children directly. "I can't promise you I'll win. I can't promise you I'll always be strong. But I can promise this. I will not run. If they come, I will stand." The boy smiled faintly, as if he had been waiting to hear those words. The little girl hugged her doll tighter and whispered, "Then we are not afraid." Their eyes said the rest. The soldier turned away for a moment, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. It was not comfort, not peace, but something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. Their eyes had given him more than fear. They had given him a reason to fight again. Outside, the sun climbed higher, but the soldier knew shadows were already gathering. The clans would not stay quiet for long. He could almost hear the whispers in the colony, rumors spreading of a human sheltering a widow. The soldier tightened his grip on the weapon resting by the wall. He no longer carried it just for himself. Now, those children's eyes followed him everywhere, reminding him that running was no longer an option. He was their protector, and soon he would have to prove it. The days after the widow's plea passed in uneasy silence. The soldier repaired the cracks in his small shelter, moved furniture against the weak spots in the walls, and kept his weapon close at hand. But no matter how much he prepared, he knew the storm was coming. The colony was never truly quiet. Rumors spread faster than fire, and soon everyone whispered the same thing. A human had taken in an alien widow and her children. To some, it was a story of bravery. To others, it was a mistake that would bring trouble to every doorstep nearby. And to the clans, it was an insult that demanded punishment. The soldier felt the shift in the air. When he walked outside for water, eyes followed him. Neighbors who once kept to themselves now turned away, afraid to be seen speaking to him. The widow noticed too, pulling her children closer whenever footsteps echoed behind them. One evening, as the sun fell low and shadows stretched across the snow, the first sign of the clans appeared. A group of armored figures moved through the narrow path leading to his shelter. Their steps were loud, confident, the sound of men who believed no one could stand against them. The soldier stood at his doorway, waiting. The leader of the group, a tall alien with sharp features and burning eyes, stopped a few feet away. His lips curled into a cold smile. "So it's true. The human hides a widow under his roof. bold, even foolish. Do you know what this means? The soldier's voice was calm, steady. It means she and her children are safe here. That is all. The leader laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet evening. Safe? You think your kind's reputation will protect her? You think one man, alone, can stand against the clans? You are far from your armies now, human. Out here you are nothing but flesh and blood. We will take what is ours. The widow appeared behind the soldier, her face pale but her back straight. She held her children close, refusing to hide. I am not yours, she said firmly. And my children are not yours. The clan leader's smile faded, replaced with anger. You dare defy us? You were given your chance to bend. Now your fate belongs to us. The soldier stepped forward, blocking their path. His eyes narrowed, his tone low and sharp. If you want them, you'll have to come through me. A tense silence followed. The clansmen shifted uneasily. They had expected fear, begging, surrender. Instead, they found a wall of iron standing before them. The leader sneered but did not move closer. He had seen humans fight in the war, and the memory of their defiance still lingered. You can delay it, he said coldly, but you cannot stop it. When the next moon rises, we will come. And we will not come with words. We will come with fire. With that, he turned sharply, his men following him into the falling dusk. Their footsteps faded, but their threat remained like smoke in the air. Inside, the widow clutched her children tightly. The boy tried to sound brave, whispering, "They won't take us. You won't let them." But the tremble in his voice betrayed his fear. The soldier crouched beside him, his hand resting firmly on the boy's shoulder. "No, they will not take you," he said. "But you must understand, this fight will not be easy. They will come with numbers, with weapons. You must be strong, all of you." The boy nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. The little girl hugged her doll tighter, silent but listening. Later, when the children finally slept, the widow sat across from the soldier near the dim fire. Her voice was soft, heavy with worry. "You cannot fight them all. They will bring many. More than one man can stand against." The soldier stared into the flames, his face hard. "I have stood against worse. But you are right, this will be different. I am not only fighting for myself this time. I am fighting for you, for them." The widow's eyes shimmered in the firelight. She wanted to thank him, to say more, but words failed her. Instead, she simply nodded, her gaze steady, her faith placed fully in the man who had already risked everything by opening his door. Outside, the wind howled through the night, carrying the promise of violence to come. The soldier knew the clans would return, and when they did, the quiet shelter would become a battlefield. But he also knew something else: he would not bend. Not this time. The threat had been spoken, the line drawn, and when the clans came for them, they would not find a broken man hiding from war. They would find a human ready to stand. The night fell heavy on the colony, darker than usual, as if the stars themselves had hidden behind clouds. Inside the soldier's small shelter, the fire burned low, its glow barely lighting the corners of the room. The widow held her children close, whispering soft words to calm them. But the soldier sat by the door, his weapon resting across his knees, eyes fixed on the shadows outside. He had known this moment would come. The clans never waited long when they smelled weakness. And now, because of his choice, the fight had found him. The first sign came with footsteps, slow, deliberate, too many to count. The soldier's hand tightened around the weapon. Then came voices, harsh and mocking, cutting through the stillness. "Human," one called out, "you have taken what is not yours. Come out and hand them over. Do it now, and maybe we will let you live." The soldier rose, his figure tall and unshaken. He pushed the table against the door, creating a barrier, then turned to the widow. His voice was steady. "Take the children. Go to the back corner. Stay low. Do not move until I tell you." The widow's eyes filled with fear, but she obeyed. She pulled her children into the shadows, their small hands clutching her gown tightly. The soldier turned back, shoulders squared, breathing slow and controlled. The voices outside grew louder, closer. Shadows moved against the door. Then, with a crash, the first blow landed, shaking the frame. Another strike followed, and then another. The clans had come to break him. "Open it!" a voice roared. The soldier didn't flinch. He kicked over the fire pit, scattering embers across the floor, filling the room with smoke. Darkness swallowed the space, leaving only faint glimmers of light. He wanted it that way. Let the enemy step inside blind. The door cracked open with a deafening smash. Figures spilled in, tall, armored, confident in their numbers. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning the room. But the soldier was already moving. With a roar that shook even his own chest, he struck the first intruder, sending him crashing against the wall. Another lunged forward, blade flashing, but the soldier ducked low, driving his shoulder into the attacker's chest. The alien fell, gasping, as the soldier ripped the weapon from his hands. The room filled with chaos, shouts, the clash of steel, the thud of bodies. Yet through it all, the soldier fought with a fury born not of anger, but of purpose. Every strike, every block, was for the widow hiding behind him, for the children staring with wide, terrified eyes. The clans had expected an easy victory. They thought one human could be broken, but the soldier fought like a wall of iron, unyielding, unbreakable. His body moved on instinct, the training of years resurfacing. He remembered every battlefield, every comrade who had fallen, and he carried them in his strikes. One alien shouted, "He's only one man," but fear edged his voice. The soldier gritted his teeth, sweat and blood mixing on his skin. "One man is enough," he growled, driving the enemy back step by step. More poured in, their blades flashing in the dim light. The widow pressed her children closer, shielding their eyes, but she could still hear the brutal sounds of the fight. The crash of wood, the cries of pain, the soldier's ragged breaths. At one moment, the soldier was knocked to his knees, the weight of 3 attackers forcing him down. His arms trembled, his vision blurred. But then he heard it. Tiny voices crying out behind him. The children, their fear cut through the fog, fueling him with a strength he thought he had lost. He surged upward, throwing his attackers off with a roar. His weapon swung wide, sending one enemy sprawling. He grabbed another by the collar, slamming him against the wall until he went still. The last one hesitated, fear flashing in his eyes, before retreating out the broken door. Silence followed, broken only by the soldier's heavy breathing. His chest rose and fell, his hands shaking from exhaustion. The floor was littered with broken wood and fallen foes, the air thick with smoke and sweat. Slowly, he lowered his weapon, his gaze turning toward the corner where the widow and her children crouched. Their eyes were wide, but not only with fear. There was something else now, something stronger. The boy stepped forward first, his voice trembling but full of awe. You stood against them all." The little girl clutched her doll tightly, whispering, "They couldn't take us." The widow's eyes glistened with tears as she rose to her feet. She didn't speak at first, but the look she gave him said everything. Gratitude, relief, and something deeper, respect. The soldier leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His body ached, his knuckles were raw, but he managed a faint, tired smile. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "They will come again, stronger. But as long as I stand, they will not have you." The widow bowed her head, her voice trembling but firm. "Then we will stand with you." The soldier closed his eyes for a moment, letting their words sink in. He had fought many battles for many reasons, but this was different. This was not about orders, not about war. This was about family, even if it wasn't his by blood. And for family, he would fight until his last breath. The night had been long and cruel, but dawn finally came. Pale light crept through the broken door of the soldier's shelter, falling across shattered wood and blood-stained floors. The air smelled of smoke and iron. The fight was over, for now. The soldier stood in silence, his body aching, his knuckles torn, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. He had fought through the night, driven not by duty to an army but by the need to protect the widow and her children. He looked down at his hands, scarred and trembling, and for the first time in years, he felt something more than emptiness. He felt alive. Behind him, the widow stirred. She rose slowly from where she had sheltered her children, her gown torn, her face pale with exhaustion. Yet in her eyes there was no fear now. There was pride. She looked at the soldier as if she saw not a broken man but a shield, a wall, a protector who had stood when no one else dared. The children crawled out from the corner. The boy was the first to speak, his small voice steady. "You beat them." They ran. The little girl, clutching her doll, whispered softly, "They cannot take us now. You are here." The soldier's heart tightened. He had been called many things in his life, killer, fighter, soldier, but never this. In their eyes, he was something far greater. He was hope. He bent down slowly, lowering himself to their level. "I fought for you tonight," he said, his voice rough but gentle. "But this fight is not over. They will come again, stronger, angrier. You must be ready. We must all be ready." The boy nodded, determination flashing in his young eyes. The girl clung closer to her mother, but she too lifted her gaze, as if she understood the truth of his words. The widow stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "Then we will be ready. You will not fight alone." The soldier looked at her, surprised by the strength in her tone. She was no longer the trembling woman who had knocked on his door in desperation. The fear was still there, yes, but beneath it was something stronger. A will to endure, to protect her children no matter the cost. He saw in her the same spirit he had once seen in his comrades, the same spirit that had carried humanity through war. He gave a slow nod. "Then we stand together." Outside, the colony began to stir. Rumors had already spread, whispers of a human who had defied the clans, who had stood against them and did not break. Neighbors peeked from their homes, watching from a distance, unsure whether to fear or admire him. For years, the soldier had lived in silence, hidden at the edges of the world. Now, whether he liked it or not, his name would travel. The widow touched his arm gently, drawing his attention back to her. "Last night, when I pleaded at your door, I thought I was asking you to save us. But perhaps," she paused, her eyes softening, "perhaps you also needed us, to remind you of who you are." The soldier said nothing at first. Her words struck deep, deeper than he cared to admit. For years, he had lived like a shadow, hollow and aimless. But last night, in the fire of battle, in the eyes of children who believed in him, he had felt something stir, something he thought long dead. "Purpose." He finally replied, his voice low. "Maybe you are right." The boy tugged at his sleeve, holding out the old drawing once again. The soldier unfolded it, the crude sketch of a man standing tall against shadows. This time, when he looked at it, he no longer saw just a child's imagination. He saw a promise. "You will be that man," the boy said. The soldier placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I will try." The sun climbed higher, warming the cold air. The colony was alive with murmurs, but inside the shelter, something new had taken root. The soldier was no longer just a broken warrior hiding from the past. He was part of something larger. A family, fragile but unyielding, bound not by blood but by choice. The widow's children pressed close to him, no longer out of fear but out of trust. The widow herself stood beside him, her head held high. Together, they looked out toward the horizon, where danger surely waited. But for the first time in years, the soldier did not see only enemies in the distance. He saw a path forward. He whispered more to himself than to them, but his words carried in the quiet morning. They will come again, and when they do, they will learn what it means when a human stands. The widow placed her hand over his, her voice soft but strong. And they will learn what it means when a family stands. The children smiled, their eyes bright, their fear melting into something new, hope. The soldier took a long breath, feeling the weight on his shoulders, but also the strength rising in his chest. His war was not over. But this time it was not a war for armies or for governments or for power. This was a war for family, for dignity, for love. And that, he knew, was a battle worth fighting. As the morning light filled the room, the soldier stood taller than he had in years. Broken no longer, he had found something stronger than himself. A new beginning,